Hey guys, it's me, Mr. 250, and welcome back to Steins Gate Zero. We're in the middle of a Christmas party, and we will continue from here. Yuki started to open her present. She took out a cute wooden music box. When she opened the lid, there was a little tin figure that danced. The girls all seemed really impressed. But Lukiko is a guy. It definitely looked like something a woman would enjoy receiving. With as many girls as there were coming to this party, it might have been the perfect choice. Wait, maybe I should have brought something like that. Then I realized that the idea had never even occurred to me. Ferris, you're making it too obvious. Daru reluctantly raised his hand. Who would have guessed? Everyone except Mayuri and Ferris, who knew about it in advance, raised their voices in surprise. Yuki held the music box close to her chest. She seemed really happy. And then her expression turned confused as she looked down into the box. Then she started to fidget. She hurried off towards the washroom, still holding the box. She must have seen the trick. According to what Mayuri had told me earlier, there was a fake letter from Daru himself taped to the bottom of the box. It was something like a love letter, along with an invitation to a movie date. I wondered how she was reacting. Meanwhile, Daru had also opened his own present, and he looked a little bothered. He'd been given Ferris's present. Until he opened it, he looked really happy, but now he'd gone completely silent. According to Mayuri, he was going to get a pair of movie tickets. And even though it was a present from Ferris, the tickets came with instructions to use them for a date with Yuki. Ferris responded to Daru's questioning gaze with a wink. "Good luck, nya," she seemed to be saying. For her part, Ferris had received some kind of strange doll that Maho had bought at the donkey's yoke. Lukiko's present was a miniature remote-controlled helicopter that Dr. Leskinen had purchased. And Dr. Leskinen got a set of 12 cute little crayons from Nai. Suza's present was a pair of handmade gloves. Yuki had evidently made them herself. She put them on, looking happy, but maybe a little lonely, and smiled.
Suzuha, yukatta-jan.
っていうか、兄さんは何が当たったの？
これ。
Daru realized that he'd been set up and was clearly avoiding looking at her. Suza seemed to understand and patted him on the back with a gentle expression on her face.
いいんじゃない？行ってきなよ。
なんだお、Suzuhaまで。
だって、二人を見てるとじれったいからさ。
けど、リアルでデートなんかしたことないし。
母さんもそうらしいよ。
え、そうなん？うん。そっか。
Yuki came back from the bathroom. She seemed to be having trouble walking straight. She sat back in her seat, but began to nervously nibble on snacks at the table. and once in a while she would take a look at Daru. For now, the movie ticket plan seemed to be going well. Staring too much could tip her off. I should probably pretend I didn't know anything.
ああ、マユシーが用意したオルゴールは真帆さんに言ったんだね。
Oh. Mayuri raised her voice when she saw the music box in Maho's hands. It was shaped like a deformed bear, and when you wound it up, its hands and legs would jerk back and forth as it played a tune. It was a very different design than the one Yuki had received.
いいのかしら。こんな素敵なものをいただいてしまって。いいんですよ。どうぞどうぞ。どんな音？聞きたい。そうですね。僕も聞いてみたいです。
Maho started to wind it up. As she wound it, Kairi turned off the music in the background.
じゃあ。
Maho took her hand off of the winding key, and the mechanical yet gentle sound that was unique to music boxes began to play. The lively atmosphere of the lab was replaced with a feeling of calmness and peace. We listened quietly to the sound of the music box.
マユシーね。この曲大好きなんだ。僕もです。ポカポカした気持ちになるね。ええ、そうね。あ、そうか。この曲だ。
Suza stood up as if she suddenly remembered something.
ユキさん、ほら、覚えてない？え？はい？
Yuki was spacing out so hard that she started to panic when Suza spoke to her.
私が寝込んでた時、ユキさんがここで歌ってたよね。ああ、そういえば。うん、確かにこの曲だよ。
Suza seemed to be remembering something as her eyes narrowed.
ねえ、まゆ姉さん、これ、なんていう曲？これは。
Mayuri was about to speak, and then... Whoa! The square corner of the room is wobbly! Is this why we've been having this weird black square the whole time, is so it could do this weird effect here? Because this is the first time I've seen something that looks kind of like that. Out of nowhere, the world twisted. I moaned in pain as an incredible sense of wrongness flooded through me. The whole lab seemed to twist and fade. And the happy party I'd been experienced warped and waved like a mirage. This couldn't be... No. Somewhere far away I heard something that sounded like a violent crash. I was just barely able to move my eyes in the direction it came from, and I saw Fubuki falling to the floor as she knocked over a table. Kaide and Ferris ran over to her, calling her name. But it all looked so blurred, like I was watching a movie underwater and everything was moving so slow. Their voices were getting further and further away. No matter how much I stretched out my hand, it reached no one and touched nothing. It was a terrible feeling, as if time and space were being torn apart and even matter itself was losing its subjectivity. This feeling, even if I didn't want to remember it, I knew what this awful feeling was. I knew it far better than I had ever wanted. This was... reading Steiner. We're having music flashbacks. I guess, I have no idea. I guess that maybe the music box is the time leap machine? Or not time leap, but time travel of some description. For the first time in almost 4 months, I felt like the whole world was twisting. Who was it? Who had changed the world line? I didn't do anything. I hadn't interfered with the world. So why was the world doing this to me? Whoa, it's all wobbly again. Whoa. This doesn't look particularly inviting. I opened my eyes. Things had already taken on different colors. The world kept wavering, until once again it became fixed to a single point in time. I wasn't looking at a warm, cheerful party in the lab anymore. I was outside. It was raining. The rain was falling in my face, in drops so large that it hurt. It was a midwinter rain. It was freezing cold, and I could feel it sapping the strength from my body. Oh yeah, this looks bad. My view stopped twisting. I was staring at the broad back of a man I didn't know. I could hear the sound of many boots stamping through the mud, mingling with falling rain. The stench was terrible. The smell of sewage was so strong it hurt to breathe, and it was mixed with the awful smell of burning rubber and plastic. Where was I? What was I doing right now? Things around me had changed so much. I tried to understand the situation I was in, but my brain was having an awful time keeping up.
もう少しです。頑張って。
When I stopped, a rough hand patted me on the shoulder encouragingly. I looked around to see a man my age with a strong, powerful face. It was a face I'd never seen. I didn't know him. Probably. The man was wearing the camo outfit and equipment I'd often seen the self-defense force wear in the news. He was carrying an assault rifle on his shoulder. There were 7 or 8 people around me, all dressed the same. They surrounded me in a circular formation and walked forward silently, as they kept a careful eye on the area around them.
この人たちは自衛隊員?
And then I realized I was wearing the same camo uniform they were.
俺が自衛隊員だって?
I touched my bicep to check, but there was no muscle. It was flabby and weak. Unlike the others, I wasn't carrying any weapons. Then what was going on here? It felt like these 7 or 8 tough-looking SDF guys were all guarding me. Since when was I that important? Still confused, I dragged myself onwards. Where was I anyway? It was a long path filled with dark brown mud. The walls formed a tall silhouette to the left and right. The path was filled with garbage and concrete rubble, and sometimes we had to force our way past it. I looked up past the high walls. Despite the rain, the moon in the night sky was strangely red and a little too bright. It was thanks to the moon that we were able to walk down a path like this without flashlights. Sound. I heard a sound. It was the sound of water. I looked over and saw a hole opened in one of the walls. Filthy water was pouring out. The water formed dozens of little rivers that blocked our path. So that was it. This was the bottom of a river that had dried up. What looked like high walls were the river dikes.
ここってどの辺なんです?
I turned towards the man who had spoken to me a bit ago, and yelled so that my voice could be heard over the rain.
大きな声を出さないで。
すみません。
あと少しで都心を抜けます。練馬駐屯地の近くまで行けば車が用意されているはずですから、そこまでなんとか便利です。
But his words cut off there. Everyone seemed more tense than ever. One of them grabbed me and pushed me towards the side of the riverbed. Everyone put their backs against the wall and held their breath. I could hear the sound of a helicopter's rotors in the distance. No, more than just one. They were getting closer. I had no idea what was going on, but I could feel my heart start to beat faster.
あの車の陰に入って。
past several meters of rubble, lay an overturned car. It must have fallen into the riverbed after the water had disappeared. The entire body was bent inward and the roof was completely crushed. I lay down in the stinking mud and slid into the shadow of the overturned car. At the same time, the SDF soldiers were issuing each other orders, as if this was something they'd planned for already. 2 of them had stayed by my side, and everyone else ran back the way we'd come. They'd all climbed up crevices and outcroppings on the wall, then disappeared over the edge of the dike and out of my view. Shortly after, those were gunshots. And not just a single shot from a handgun or anything like that. This was the sound of war. I could hear the helicopters get further away, drawn by the gunfire. In this world line, was Japan at war? The Third World War. I remembered Suza's words. I happened to look inside of the crushed car. I could see the corpse of a man, a woman, and a small child hanging upside down, still attached to their seatbelts. They were all covered in dried black blood. They looked like mannequins at a bad haunted house. And then I realized I'd been so focused on moving forward that I hadn't noticed what they were, but I'd seen similar mannequins sunk into the mud. I could see their arms, the bones and ragged muscle exposed to the air, reaching up to the sky as if seeking salvation. I put my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. Those weren't mannequins. He pulled me up. My knees were shaking from shock and exhaustion. Oh, the Soviet Union? Oh. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the last half second of your words. Whoops. Not quick load. Tips. Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, created in 1922. After the end of World War II, it began a long Cold War with America, but the Cold War ended in 1991. It consisted of Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, starting to mess up some names, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. The words got harder as we went along. My mind was dulled from the terror, but it seemed like there was something off about what he had just said. A helicopter passed over the riverbed. The bright searchlight passed by us for a moment, but thankfully the shadow of the dike hit us. The young SDF soldier, whose name I didn't even know, pulled me inside one of the holes in the concrete. When I looked closely, I could see that it was the entrance to a sewer. It was just big enough for a single person to pass through. Struggling against the flow of water that came up to my knees, I pressed on through the darkness. My sense of smell had already gone numb, so I didn't have to worry about the stench of the sewage. Once inside, we came to several branching paths. The SDF soldiers seemed to know which one would lead where, and they marched on without hesitation. And then we came out of the sewer and back into a riverbed. It was dried up, just like the one we'd been through. I didn't know if it was the same river or another one, and the two soldiers didn't tell me. Either way, I was glad to be finally out of the foul-smelling darkness, and I tried to take a deep breath and fill my lungs with fresh air. But halfway through, I realized that the riverbed smelled even worse than the sewer. I took an involuntary step back, and then another. The sight in front of me was just that terrible. What was once a riverbed was now filled with bodies. Some of them had been burnt totally black, so it was impossible to tell how much death lay before me. And in the distance I could see what looked like bonfires. They were burning despite the rain. The fires were consuming the mountains of flesh that once were human bodies.
もうすぐです。きついでしょうが、走れますか?
The SDF soldier spoke to me, and then I came back to my senses. If it weren't for these two, I wouldn't have been able to stay sane. We ran through the riverbed, one of them in front of me, the other behind. I could hear the constant drone of the helicopters above me. Sometimes the searchlights got very close. Each time they did, I hid in the piles of bodies until they passed. I'd seen this many times before as I'd wandered through the world lines. I'd seen death. I'd seen the moments when people had died. But at the same time, I'd never experienced what happened to a dead person after they were left out for a long time. More than fear, more than sorrow, the thing that hit me first was the smell of death. The rotting stench ate away at my body, not my soul. My whole body was rejecting it. It made me feel sick. Thinking that way meant trampling on the dignity of the dead, but I couldn't help it. The Valley of Hinnom. I remembered that phrase. That was what the strange attacker had said that night when they came after Dr. Leskinen, Maho, and me. Kind of an interesting parallel, is it not? That valley was the origin of the word Gehenna, meaning hell. It was said that the flames burned there every night, scorching the heavens themselves. Those who died merciless deaths with anger and misery in their hearts were flung into the flames, their souls becoming black smoke that rained hatred down on the land. What I stared at now was Gehenna. The two soldiers led me to a half-collapsed subway tunnel. The lights were all off because there was no electricity, but there were 3 armored cars in camo colors, with their headlights on to illuminate the way. They were 4-wheel drive, off-road vehicles covered in thick chunks of armor, but I didn't see any real weapons.
ここから地下鉄内を通って埼玉へ抜けられます。入間基地はまだ無事と聞いています。そこまで行けば関東を脱出できるはずです。
Iruma Base. One of the Air Self-Defense Force's largest bases, located between Iruma and Sayama cities in Saitama Prefecture. It's home to 18 units and around 4,300 personnel. And it's also the location of the Air Defense Command Headquarters Flight Group.
関東脱出?
話は向こうで聞いてください。とにかく急いで。
There were a lot of things I wanted to ask, but even as we spoke, I heard what sounded like gunshots inside of the tunnel, or outside. The men forced me into the back seat of one of the cars.
それでは、ご無事を祈っております。
え、あなた方は？
自分たちには別の任務がありますので。では。
The two soldiers who had brought me here saluted, then turned around and left the station. I felt like I was never going to see them again. The door of the armored car slammed shut with a heavy thud. The car's crew are SDF soldiers, just a little older than me. The diesel engine kicked to life, and the car raced down a tunnel that had originally been designed for trains. Of course it wasn't a pleasant ride at all, but I didn't have any choice. There was no way I could tell them I wanted to go to Akihabara. I had no way to alter the world line. I had to survive in this hellish world. And to survive, I needed to do what they said. My wants didn't matter at all. I wasn't even allowed to express them. I just did as they told me and ran. It was all I could do. But I had no idea that it would take an entire month. What is all this? I'ma bomb you from Japan, www. Oh, there's a lot here. Feel free to read it as, you go through. I'm going to read it to myself. Times are all saying this is 2010. Which, if I remember correctly, is about the time, roughly, when Steins Gate takes place. On the 25th of 2010. That's the day after what just happened. Like what we just experienced, because we just experienced Christmas Eve, so this is Christmas Day. I'm pretty sure it's the day after. Shut up, noob. Shut up, traitor. Okay. W. So this is an interesting turn, is it not? Let's see, W. Shortened version of the Japanese word for laughter, wari. Supposedly it was first used in a non-Japanese online game. By adding a W to the end of a sentence or placing it in the middle, you can indicate that you find the situation humorous. On anonymous internet message boards, adding more W's such as www can be used to increase the amount of laughter or indicate that you're mocking an opponent. Examples of sentences including W are, whoa, www, okay, www, and I'm getting excited. Using W's in this way is sometimes called making grass grow because of the way they look. Okay. Net slang, that means okay. Thanks. So we have gone seriously from normal Steins Gate to future Steins Gate. Man, I really, like, if I was not strapped for time, we would be playing more, we really would. But I cannot do any more today, unfortunately. But I'll try to see if I can do some more soon, because it's super exciting. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time for some more Steins Gate 0. Bye!